We have a few methods that are in our sport fishing proclamation that really should be in our bait fishing proclamation, and those are cast netting, dipping, and shad trawling. So we ask that we delete those from the sport proclamation and know that they are already in our bait proclamation. So people will still be allowed to use dip nets and shad trawls and cast netting. We would also ask that we delete tubbing as a method, which is one of them. It's a very arcane method, I guess, of taking a number 3 tub, cutting a hole out of it, and just jamming it over fish. And I had to go back 3 fish chiefs to find someone that knew someone that might have done this method. So I think it's safe to say we could remove it. I think if you were hand fishing, it would be just as effective. So we're trying to clean up this while we're digging around in this section of the proclamation. I think some of that tubbing may have come out before it was so easy to buy monofilament cast nets. Anyway, on to Dale Hollow Reservoir, we currently have a three rod in use limit per boat angler and a 6 rod limit for bank anglers. We'd like to simplify this and go to 4 rods total in use per angler, and this would include the walleye run. On Calderwood Reservoir, we currently have a reciprocal agreement that is limited to those people fishing in boats only, and we'd like to spread this out to all anglers on the lake. Tennessee Wildlife stocks more than half of the fish, of the trout that are stocked in this reservoir, so we want to give our people every opportunity to fish the shoreline, which is primarily on the North Carolina side. Of course, there's shoreline everywhere, but it's only fishable on the North Carolina side where there's access and it doesn't go over your head in 2 steps. But so this is a process that we're engaged in. We're working with the state of North Carolina. They are like 2 steps into their process. They don't see any reason why it won't be passed. So we're just moving along in good faith. And as Tennesseans, we have nothing to lose because they're the ones that are going to be giving up some real estate for us. But they respect the fact that we're stocking there, so they're going along with it. On Kentucky Lake last month, we gave a longer presentation about what's happening on Kentucky Lake with the crappie fishery and what can be done about it. Just to summarize quickly, we're experiencing a couple of missing year classes on this reservoir, and it is notable in the notice by the fishermen who have asked us to do something about it. Knowing how the population dynamics of crappie are in Kentucky Lake and really most lakes where there's crappie, there's not a lot we can do with creel limits or size limits to fix this problem of fish not spawning. We've got a length limit in place that will protect crappie. We were asked to look at a creel limit of 20, but just to reiterate, CWRA is not recommending any changes. We would recommend that we stay with the current regulations of 30 fish per day and a 10-inch minimum length limit. But again, we were asked to consider a 20 fish creel limit. So let me just review that information. This is based on surveys of people on the water fishing. The percent of fish that would have to be released with a 20 fish creel limit is about 9% of the fish on the north end of the lake, 2% on the south end. So it would have more of an effect on the upper end of the lake, actually the lower end of the lake, the northern end. The percent of angler trips that harvest more than 20 crappie is about 17% on the upper part of the lake. So while there would be some fish released, the problem with crappie is that they don't all live just because they're released. They have a very high mortality rate. So we don't think we would have a huge benefit from this, but these are the fish that would be spared if a 20 fish creel limit were considered. And with that, I'll take any questions about proclamation or recommendations for Proclamation 1643.
Thank you, Frank. Do I hear a motion from the Fisheries Committee to pass Proclamation 1643 as presented by staff? Motion made by Chairman Watson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion from the Fisheries Committee? Ms. Connie?
I am the one that made the, ask you to look at the 20 fish creel limit, and I would like to propose an amendment to this from the 30 to the 20. not because I don't trust the biologist to give us the best information to make that decision. I think keeping it at 30 suits me because I love to fish and I hope I can catch 30. But because I have received a lot of phone calls, and the report, of course, that was shown doesn't reflect that we're getting that much input from the fishermen. But I'm hearing it. That's where I fish a lot and spend a lot of time. We have a place on Kentucky Lake, so I hear it from fishermen that I know have fished there for years, and they really feel like we need to do something. And I felt like this would be a good something to do that wouldn't necessarily hurt the resource or the tourism so I would just like to make that amendment and see what everybody else thinks about it, so.
I'll second that amendment.
Motion been made to amend by Ms. Connie, seconded by Chad. Any other discussion on the amendment? Any discussion from the audience on that amendment? Hearing none, Fisheries Committee vote on the amendment to Proclamation 16-43. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passes. Back to Proclamation 16-43, Sport Fishing Proclamation as amended. Any discussion from the Fisheries Committee?
I'd like to say one more thing. I have been getting good reports, just recently. The fall fishing has been good. They're catching a lot of what they call short fish. They don't qualify to keep, but they're catching a lot of fish. So this fall, right now I'm getting good reports. They may be mad at me after this fall, but that's what I'm hearing right now. So I did want to add that I would like to say if we do pass this at 20, the next year, if we have a good year, it won't be that hard to go back to the 30, I wouldn't think, so.
Thank you, Ms. Connie. Any other discussion from the Fisheries Committee on Proclamation 1643? Any from the audience? Wow, this is the first. All in favor of Proclamation 16-43, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, that was Proclamation 1643 as amended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Proclamation 16-43, Sport Fishing Proclamation as amended, passes.
Right.
Frank?
Thank you. I'm going to need some technical assistance here. Either I need my readers or the mouse has disappeared on me. Oh, it's not me. Oh, there it is.
Minimize it.
Let's just shut that down, please, and open that one. Okay. Next up is Proclamation 1644 that we're proposing to be called the Bait Proclamation, which is a change from its previous title, which was live bait. And this is an important distinction because the biggest change that we made to this proclamation is that it would now apply to not only live fish, but dead fish. And what is the purpose of the bait proclamation overall? And I think it's something we need to remind ourselves that we have these regulations on moving fish because we don't want certain species of live fish moved about the state. So we've developed a whole tier system of fish that are more safe to move, fish that could be bought and sold, fish that shouldn't be bought and sold. So I'll step through that system, which goes A through D, and I'll note the changes to the proclamation while I do it. First, we have our Class A bait fish. These are fish that, these again applies to live and dead fish. It's our safe list. These are fish that can be harvested by bait dealers and anglers. Anglers have a sport license. The bait dealers would have a commercial, not a commercial, a fish dealer license, which is separate from a commercial license. And the bait dealers can sell these fish in the Class A list. These fish can be moved within the state. They can leave the state. They can buy them from other states and sell them. and the anglers can buy them. And for most of them, there are no limits in numbers on these fish. So you're talking about real common fish that are freely moved about the state already. One change to the Class A list is that we had a 100 fish per day creel limit on the herring. Now we have a 200 skipjack herring possession limit. That was not in the old proclamation. The rest of these species are the same. In Class B, this group of fish only applies to anglers that can go catch these. Your bait dealers cannot go harvest these fish. And they can be moved and used live or dead by sport anglers. And they have a creel limit of 100 per species. And these are real common creek species that you commonly would catch in quite a few, in high numbers to go fishing with. Stone rollers are the most common. In other areas, you can get into a lot of blunt nose or bullhead minnows. Also, sort of in this category is your game fish. Any game fish that is caught legally can then be turned around and used as bait as long as the creel and length limits are met in the water that not only are you taking the fish from, but the water that you go to as well. Class C fish are those that only anglers can take, and these are the fish that can only be fished alive in the water where you're fishing. So this would be typical of someone that shows up at a creek with a cast net and just is going to use the fish that they catch right there that day alive in that stream. They can't take them somewhere else and use them. They can take them elsewhere if they're dead. So these fish, we've set a limit on these fish because they're not as abundant as your stone rollers and such. 50 fish per day in combination with a 100 fish possession limit. And this group of fish would be hundreds of species. I've had to list them all, but it's to define it, they're not fish that are in the Class A or B, and they're fish that are not listed as in need of management, threatened, or endangered. And an exception to this list that we didn't have in the last presentation, I realized that by limiting it to 50 fish, Asian carp would have landed in that limit. We didn't need to do that. So Asian carp can be taken without limit, but cannot be held alive. They're still a Class 5 animal that can't be held alive. So that doesn't change that. These are some examples of Class C bait fish. If you were to go catch a bunch of sculpin or shiners or darters, they would fall into this category. Collectively, you could have 50 of these plus your 100 stone rollers or creek chubs. So there's plenty of opportunity in a given day to take bait still. And there's a lot of states that are really tightening up on this, and some authorities are even limiting any live bait. They don't want any live bait for a variety of reasons. So we're really trying to give the anglers something they can work with and still protect the resource. Class D is a new section because this new proclamation applies to dead fish, and this section applies to bait dealers. It allows them to continue to take brook and inland silverside if they're selling them as dead fish. We don't want these fish moved around alive, and typically that's not how they sell this product anyway. They harvest them up, keep them dead, and sell them dead. And we also have a provision in the Class D that allows anyone that's selling bait on the shelf, they have a shelved fish that's pickled herring from somewhere else in the country, they can still sell those salted specimens, those prepackaged things. And with that, I'll take any questions on the Proclamation 1644 proposal.
All right, thank you, Frank. Do I hear a motion on Proclamation 16-44, bait fish, dead or alive? Moved by Dr. Cook. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Commissioner Baker. Any discussion from the Fisheries Committee?
One question. I thought, maybe I'm just confused, it's possible, but on the A and B, if a fellow goes and buys to a bait dealer and buys minnows and he's fishing, is it illegal when you're through to throw your live ones in?
It is illegal, and that's already in all of our proclamations. It may even be in code for that matter, but that would be considered stocking fish, and that's not legal.
Okay. Well, I mean, but why is it with Class C that you can transfer them to other lakes and stuff?
Class C, you can only take them away if they're dead.
Okay, I didn't.
And that way we don't have the risk of them
I
getting
got you.
away and do
Okay.
stuff.
Shiners is a
Most of them would be, yes. Well, a lot of times when you go to a bait store and you're buying toughies or shiners, you're either, if you're getting toughies, a lot of times you're getting fathead minnows and they're on that Class A list. And if you're getting actual shiners, it's usually golden shiners, and that's on that Class A list. If it's other shiners, that could be a problem, so we'd want to know about that. And most of the vendors that sell from up north, these bigger companies that provide bait are already using that species list. So we haven't changed anything for the industry in that sense. We just needed to update this proclamation to talk about dead animals too.
Is that process something that our officers try to enforce when they're checking boat ramps to see if they have minnows that they're actually taking home and all? Or
I can only, I assume that is, they probably get less opportunity to check that sort of thing than they do other things, but I look at this as an opportunity for the 95% of the anglers that are going to do the right thing, to give them instruction on how to do the right thing with regard to moving fish around.
Thank you, Dr. McMillan. Any other questions from the Fisheries Committee? Any discussion from the audience? Hear none. All in favor of Proclamation 16-44, Bait Fish Proclamation on the Fisheries Committee, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Chairman Cannon, that concludes the Fisheries Committee. I'm astonished, I think, in record time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Bledsoe. We have two presentations coming up that will require some computer time. So with that, we're going to take a 15-minute break. Michael, if you would, just make sure everything is set up, and we'll go straight through these, if that's all right. 15-minute break. Be back here at, let's say, 2:25. Thank you.